Call to order the work session for October 2nd, 2019. First on the agenda is a bid recommendation, BPW for 2.5-ton dump truck with plow. Mr. Fareed.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. The Department of Public Works is looking to replace a 2005 Chevrolet 2.5-ton 4x4 truck. The salt has taken its toll on it, and it's not repairable anymore. So in the replacement program, we had set aside money in the Montgomery County contract, the purchase of one of the Ford F-550 4x4 dump trucks with the snowplow would run $68,145.70. Doing this would save us $26,854.30. So it's recommended that the Mayor and City Council let us award this contract to Apple Ford, who has the Montgomery County government contract.
Thank you, Mr. Fareed. Council, I'll start with questions or comments, starting with Councilman DeWalt.
No questions.
Councilman Sidor.
No questions.
Councilwoman Nicholas.
Nope.
And Councilman Les.
Robin, side question as we ramp up for hopefully no snow this coming winter. We still have the two small loaders for the cul-de-sacs over in Wellington and so on. They're still in good operating order.
What we've done is the last time you let us purchase front end or the Bobcat we just purchased, and I have two other vehicles that we were purchased 4x4 operations, the backhoes. So we have two of those that could be utilized over there. The Bobcat has the attachment of a snow blower and or a snow, what they call a pusher. So it's a large that pushes everything off. So yes, we're well prepared now for these courts.
Okay, so we're in good shape for any snow we might get. Hopefully we won't get too much. That concludes my questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Les. Council, with that, we're all in concurrence for this to be on our agenda Monday night. Thank you. Mr. Fareed, item B is a bid recommendation for a leaf machine.
Yes, the Department of Public Works is looking to replace a 2004 leaf machine. Presently, the parts for this piece of equipment we can no longer get. We've been, doing our best to keep it in service, but at this time it's just rendered, it can't be used anymore. So Grand Turk had the government contract with CoStars for the purchase of a leaf machine. And in our replacement program, we had put in enough money to purchase one for $64,246. So at this time, we're asking the mayor and city council to approve ordering this piece of equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Furry. We'll start with questions, starting with Councilman Sidnor.
No question, sir.
Councilman DeMalt?
Rob, the leaf machine, do we keep count of how many tons of leaves we pick up per year? Or is that out of the question to try to even figure that out?
No, because what we do is we actually take them down to College Park, who puts them in windrows and then sells it back to the public after the season. And I'm sure that they tell us how many yards we deliver. They don't really tell us how many tons.
So will you be able to calculate any, to see maybe it'll go down slightly because we're allowed to now put leaves and grass trimmings and stuff like that starting September, I believe, in the organic composting things? Do you think it'll go down a little bit, or?
I would love to say yes, but again, we were constantly planting trees and we're constantly adding
we
more
got the
neighborhoods.
additions of a lot of stuff.
So
too.
I'm not gonna say it'll go down. That'll be great if it just stays about the same.
I got you. All right, thanks.
President, before you go on, can I ask him a question?
You had your turn, sir.
No, go ahead. Nah, it just threw me off. I just want for knowledge. You said we sell the leaves back to the county?
No, the College Park will sell them back to like the citizens once they've been, gone through and now or leaf grow, if you were to mulch, whatever you want to call it. They will sell it back to you. You can go buy some if you want.
The center down there, we don't.
Okay.
Councilwoman Nicholas?
I just have one question. So we only have one of these leaf blower machines?
Actually, this will be the third. We have three. We have two others that we've purchased throughout the years. It's just this one, I can no longer get parts for it. It's past its. We've robbed pieces of it to keep everything up and going, and I'm just trying to get one in. Usually, it takes almost 6 months to get one. So I'm not even looking for it this year. Probably won't even be able to use it till next leaf season.
It sounds like you've had it a long time, so I'm okay with this.
Thank you. Councilman Letts?
Thank you, Mr. President. Rob, just so everybody's clear, this is one thing where we take and give to them at no cost. We offload the leaves down at their center at no cost, correct? It's just
we pay College Park to let us bring leaves to them.
Is it by the ton or
it's by the yard? What we have is our roll-offs will hold 10 yards of leaves. So when we take it down there, there's no weight or anything. They know that I have one roll-off full of leaves. So we get a bill for those 10 yards. It's not a lot of money. It's actually cheaper than MES.
Right.
But we're also trying to help the citizens that, Laurel can go get the Leaf Pro back. Anybody can go get it back. It's just they'd have to buy it back from College Park.
Okay, and then they do whatever they're doing with it. They sell it back to the public.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Free. You have another item that you'd like to bring to the council and mayor's attention?
Yes. We had awarded a contract to Services Inc. to do a variety of concrete work, sidewalk, curb and gutter all over town. And after we executed the contract with them, of course, they had 90 days to complete the project. The 90 days was up Monday. They last week brought in a piece of equipment and set it over on 4th Street, did a couple saw cuts, and have not done anything else. I've talked to the owner of the company 3 or 4 times about the ending of the contract. In the contract, if he was asking for extension, he could have sent us a letter. We've received nothing. I called him again today, and he's back to trying to find a concrete plant to get concrete. Well, winter's coming. There was a lot of curb and gutter and sidewalks that were tripping hazards all over town that we try to do every year, and presently I have the contractor that was working over in the Greens of Patuxent, who is still willing to waive his mobilization fees and come in before winter and do this work. But I would imagine first I'm going to have to get the city solicitor to let me send a letter or put together a letter, to cancel this contract.
Mayor?
Rob, the letter can come from you. I don't need the city solicitor to write it. The contract said 90 days. They haven't done it. We need to look at that. We need to do a startup as well at our contract, because this is silliness, and we're not going to be able to get the sidewalks done if we don't move forward.
I guess so. My question would be to utilize the gentleman that's presently under contract with us, if we could basically just let him do the curb and gutter sidewalks around town and not have to come back to the council. It would not be any change in price or anything. It would be the same price that was already awarded to this company. It was just delete this company and let me hire this company to come in, or actually extend their contract and let them do the work, if that's possible.
But, Mayor, I think that just be an administrative issue, since we're not changing any quantities or anything.
This is something that bid recommendation was approved by the city council. I really don't have the authority without you all making some type of motion or what have you. Did they bid on the last one? Or they're just already up in
NZI actually bid on the last one. The number two, when we contacted that company, they were like, no, we would rather renegotiate. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. NZI said that we'll just waive our mobilization fees because we're already here.
So really what the administration would be asking is that
You talk to the mayor about that.
we would notify the current contractor that was approved by the mayor and city council through a letter, through Rob or whoever. It needs to move quickly. The 90 days is up. And if the council, part of it would be that allow the director of Department of Public Works to use, who is it?
NZI,
Nazario, who's already mobilized in the city for the same prices, right?
Correct.
That's something to that effect, Mr. President.
Yeah, I agree. And Councilman Les and I were just briefly talking about it as well. So as the mayor pointed out, and I think the process would be a letter immediately going to the current contractor, relieving them of the contract per, clauses, whatever, in the current contract, and then mobilizing NZI with, in our minds at least, a presentation, so to speak, before the council on Monday night.
Okay.
So we can take a vote on it, and that gives you the opportunity to move forward.
Okay.
And mobilize them.
To basically just put together a extension of their contract that they're under right now to include this work.
Okay, and so we'll need a memo from you explaining exactly the whole process.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't have a problem with that.
Excellent.
Mr. President, could I ask a question?
yes.
Rob, who is the current contractor that we're going to void that contract with?
It's Services Inc.
Services Inc.?
Yes.
And where are they from?
They're out of, I think, Upper Marlboro. They have offices over in Bowie. When we checked our references, when we came to you, everything was fine, but we're running into some problems now.
Thank you.
They're the ones that did WSSC.
Yep, WSSC, and they worked a little bit for the state.
Ms. Rao?
Mr. President, I just want to let you know that the next meeting will be Wednesday, October the 16th at 7.
Okay.
Is that going to be okay?
That's right. I'll get the letter out immediately. I'll put together the proposal, send it to you, and if they can do something prior to that, would be great. If not, then I guess I don't have a choice.
We'll talk with the administration, Mr. Fareed, to find out and discuss what's going to be the most efficient way of handling this,
Yes.
perhaps rather than waiting until the 16th.
Okay.
But we'll talk with the administration.
Rob, just for everybody's benefit, including myself, when would winter shutdown really take effect?
Once the ground freezes, for concrete, I can't have them.
So we still have some time, possibly.
Still have probably into November. I'll say maybe towards the end of November.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thanks, sir. Agenda item 1C is a bid recommendation from the Office of Management Hazard Mitigation, Office of Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Services.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mayor, and council members. I have a recommendation here for the approval of a hazard mitigation contract with Ralston Solutions, LLC. Ralston Solutions has been with us for 2 years, and they have been our mainstay in assisting myself and the city with a wide range of hazardous mitigation projects. This year, we wanted to approach the contract with Ralston different than we have in the past. In the past, we've just said, here's a contract, here's a certain amount, and then I kept track of the various tasks and all. We wanted this year to define the contract clearer than it was in the past 2 years. So I gave Kim, and I think she handed out a copy of the breakdown on the proposed contract. It's up to $75,000. The funding has been approved in the CIP budget. The task orders are broken down as you see on the one sheet for the pre-disaster mitigation grants for generators. This is the program where we're looking to get natural gas generators to replace our diesel-driven generators. It will help reduce the carbon footprint for the city. Also, it will provide us a more I'm having a brain cramp. Having natural gas is less inhibited during a disaster. Right currently now with our 6 major generators for our buildings, we have diesel fuel tanks, and we have a emergency contract if the diesel runs out. However, we've had some issues with if there's a major disaster within the region, we don't know how fast we'll be in line to get it. So having these natural gas generators, the supply is uninterrupted, and the only thing that would happen if it was a major earthquake or something like that. So that part of the hazardous mitigation program, Ralston is helping us put in for a grant for the generators through MEMA and FEMA, and that's going along satisfactory. We're hoping to get 2 approved this year for the police department and for City Hall here, and then we're going to do the Laurel Armory and Public Works, and last we'll do Parks and Recreation, and then we'll look at Robert J. DePietro Center. But the next task order that they have as part of this contract is a river gauge. Ralston brings a lot of expertise to the table in reference to these river flood gauges. They are working closely with me on the new low-cost gauges that DHS Scientific and Technology Division has just got done beta testing. We are looking to get into the initial stages of that program. Right now, the beta test involved Ellicott City, Mecklenburg County, and a place in New Mexico, and I think a place in Texas. These low-cost gauges, currently the USGS gauges run anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 per gauge. These new low-cost gauges are about $1,800 a piece, along with the software and all that cost is associated with that. But we're looking to get 12 of these gauges and to put them strategically, 2 of them or 3 of them in the river, and then at other spots within the city, so we can have state-of-the-art situational awareness on flooding issues. These new gauges have an app on them that the citizens can tie into. It's like the Waze for traffic. So if you have the app on your phone and it's raining, it will send you alerts that, hey, the parking lot's being flooded, Brockbridge Road's flooded, don't go that way. So these are state-of-the-art gauges. So Ralston is in the process of working with us to get us into that program and also to get funding through federal and MEMA grants to support that program. There's 2 current grants that Ralston has got for us, a $100,000 grant from FEMA and MEMA for flood mitigation assistance, and the other one is the monies for pre-disaster mitigation, which Ralston has currently, for the last 2.5 years, managed our hazardous mitigation program that we're currently involved in with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, with the Patuxent Watershed Partnership. And for most of you that already know, this is a 9-task technical study. The Army Corps of Engineers is completing up task 5. We're in the process of arranging funding for the last 4 tasks. So Ralston has been managing that whole piece for us with me. That's going to be a very, very great project for the region and for the city. Once we have this technical study done, which will probably be early in 2020, MEMA has agreed to take the lead on the project since it's involving so many regions and so many agencies. And when it gets to the action phase, they're going to go ahead and step forward and then continue the project on. I think that's a very, very great plum for us because there's so many jurisdictions. If we got the technical study done now, we'd get ours from the city. Anne Arundel County would get theirs. Howard County, City of Bowie, the Stronach people, and Prince George's County, and they could take the technical study and just sit it on a shelf and nothing would be done. With MEMA taking over the project, there's a higher degree of probability that we'll start into the action phase about what we can really do to reduce the flood risk along the watershed. Stream restoration, bank restoration, the gauges, whatever else there is to reduce the flood plain and to reduce the flood risk. MEMA is going to hire a project manager specifically for this project, so it really is a very good project, and I want to thank both the mayor and the council for their support in this project because it is one of the biggest regional projects that's ever been in this area, and it bodes well for all of us because we're moving forward. But Ralston has been a great partner for us in the hazard mitigation program. They continue to get grants for us, and I think it's an effective way to use the funding that we have earmarked for them. That's all I have, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We'll start with questions, comments from Councilman Wall.
Steve, is there a way you could, or can you forward information as far as these, the difference of the gas generator, the natural gas generators to replace the diesel generators to us so that, like a comparison of the two?
Yes, sir, I sure can.
And you're saying that the gauges that you're proposing, citizens can tap into, install an app on their phone and they'll get alerts and things like that?
Yes, sir.
Can you also forward me that information too?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen, would you please forward that information to Ms. Rao so that it be shared among council?
Yes,
as
Mr.
well?
President, sure will.
Next, Councilman Sidnor. Questions, comments?
No question.
Councilwoman Nicholas?
No question.
Councilman Les?
Yeah, Steve, when I went online to take a look at the generators, oil versus gas, a large part of the decrease in the carbon footprint is the carbon that will not be turned out with the natural gas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There, it just doesn't generate it. And if I remember correctly, many years ago, before you came, we had a heck of a cold snap here. And Bowie was at the end of the line for the gas. And they ran out of gas. On the other hand, it turned out when we took a look at it that City of Laurel's on high pressure gas lines. Okay? And so we're not going to run out of gas. And so this is a better solution than relying upon the oil delivery service, especially when there's snow and it's cold out there. So I applaud this effort by you. Thank you, Mr. President.
And if I could add too, Councilman Les, in researching this and working with our individual Kelly generator, which is from Owens,
Right.
Calvert County, when another thing that I'm working with is with Parking and Recs with Bill Bailey. Their goal is to, as our electric HVAC units die, they're replacing them with natural gas. So as part of this upgrade, if in fact, I'm pretty positive when we go to this, that we're going to upgrade the size of the line, the meter, and everything else in anticipation of down the road as these units go bad and we put units in, we'll have everything in place for that. Also, another thing I wanted to add to the council, as part of this conversion program, we're going to take 2 of our old generators, we're going to put them on trailers, and we're going to have them as backup generators, which we don't have now. And also, at every one of our buildings, we're going to have a quick connect. Right now, if this generator went out and we had to call a company in an emergency and hook up, it'd take them about 4 to 5 hours, approximately. And that's if they could get here. But with this new quick disconnect, I'll be able to call Rob and say, hey, bring the trailer up. We can pull it right around back, and plug it right in. And then within whatever time it comes up here, we'll have power. So it's a critical, I can tell you from all the disasters I've been on, the fuel companies will tell you, we'll be there. Yeah, right, okay. Checks in the mail. But this will give us a more sustainable source to make sure that we got backup power for our buildings.
One more question.
Yes, Councilman Les.
Steve, I assume that, Rob, you'll train people how to do that. We start plugging these things in, I start to worry about somebody getting juiced. I assume. Outstanding. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Allen, I do have one question, not so much a question, you would just give us a little explanation of the task order 3, the FMA grants. I think you mentioned $100,000 FEMA grants, but can you explain to us, excuse me, who the beneficiary, so to speak, of that grant is, what projects is this grant pay for, et cetera?
Yes, sir. The $100,000 grant and the $25,000 grant were initially put in to get us seed money to do the technical study that the Corps is doing right now. And while we were waiting for approval from them grants, that's when the Corps approached us and said, hey, we heard about this project that you have. And they stepped in with half the money. The city put half the money. We got the scope of work and the agreement between us done, and we started the technical study. About 3 or 4 months later, we found out that we were lucky and we got approved for these 2 grants. So the money's still sitting there, and we're working with Ralston Solution and the state to see how we can use that money. We've had several meetings with MEMA because the initial scope of work that was approved for the grants, there again, we don't need that money for that particular project. So we're working with them to identify other pieces. We're waiting for the technical study to get completed, and then we're going to see if there's something that the city can use that funding for hazardous mitigation on our part of the city. So that's what that's what the grant money is there waiting for.
And if my memory serves me correctly, several months ago, you sort of introduced this to us, and I don't recall, maybe it was a conversation you and I had, but you were starting to move in the direction that things have now grown into.
Correct. And we're still moving in that direction.
Got it.
You know, the good thing about the 2 federal grants is it has a period of performance, I think it's 3 or 4 years. So we have some time instead of trying to rush out and do something. What we're really doing is we strategize and said, we'll wait and see what happens with the technical study. And then if there's something that we can use that funding for, or a different new project, and then we're going to use it for that. But there again, Ralston has been very, very great with identifying grants that we can, go out for and use our money efficiently and effectively.
Great. Thank you. Councilman, council, are we good to move forward with this for Wednesday? Wednesday
And
night.
I'll get that stuff to you as soon as I can.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Agenda item D is ordinance number 1947, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of Laurel, Maryland, to amend the Laurel City Code to add Chapter 13, Telecommunications, to allow for the regulation of wired and wireless telecommunication within the city and providing an effective date. Good evening, Mr. Frost.
Good evening, Mr. President, Mayor, council members. If you remember back at the beginning of the summer, this is a small cell related ordinance. And in the beginning of the summer, you approved Ordinance 1933, which is our small cell ordinance. That ordinance was dropped into our land development code. As we proceeded with our small cell discussions through the summer and got into some more technical discussions, we became aware that really Ordinance 1933 should be in its own standalone chapter. Land development code is primarily a zoning issue. This is a rights-of-way issue. And we thought the best thing to do would be to create a chapter for telecommunications. We have a lot of movement in the future in technology and telecommunications, and it seemed like a standalone chapter would be appropriate. So Ordinance 1947 creates that chapter. It's more an administrative function, and the follow-on ordinance, Agenda F tonight, will basically move Ordinance 33 out of Land Development Code and into Chapter 13.
Got it. Makes sense to me. We'll start with comments or questions. We'll start this time with Councilman Les.
I'm fine with this.
Councilwoman Nicholas,
I'm fine with it.
Councilman Sidnor,
No questions.
and Councilman DeWalt.
No questions.
Excellent. That means we'll have it on the agenda for Wednesday night. 1E is bid recommendation fiber construction along Van Dusen Road. Ross?
We are starting to move, and along with our strategic plan on fiber construction. This is the first construction we've had in probably a year and a half. But I've been doing a lot of work looking at fiber. This project is a partnership with Prince George's County, and our end of this project will take fiber down Van Dusen Road from the intersection to the corner of the firehouse. And as we go down Van Dusen Road, we'll be dropping fiber at the dog park, the Leo Wilson Park, all three of our traffic signals along the way, and picking up. We'll do a drop at the tennis court, but we will not connect anything there. These drops will connect our cameras, Wi-Fi in those parks, and at the dog park, we have card-controlled access that will come off a standalone node and be directly considered put on our network. The contract itself, we're going to piggyback on the county contract. It is with SaiTech out of Largo. The contractor is actually a county contract on a CATS contractor, consulting and technical services. So it is actually a county contract similar to a state contract. The money is coming out of CIP. It is funded. Total cost is about $142,000. The county piece of this is currently just completed. They have run fiber from Schweitzer Lane up at the water plant where their radio tower is, and they have come down 198. They have crossed Van Dusen, and they have actually dropped a 216 count fiber in the front of our building. So that's where we are there. We're waiting to do some splicing. So what will happen is we're going to run a 144 count fiber down Van Dusen, and we will splice into that at the corner of Van Dusen and 198. And
Comments, questions? Councilman DeWalt?
No questions.
Councilman Sidnor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Frost, I sent a couple of email to you guys yesterday, and you already answered a couple of questions on here, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, I'm prepared to answer that, Councilman Sidnor.
Yeah, I know you are, sir. You always are. You always do a great job as well. I guess you said we got a contract where actually we're placing the Comcast fiber to the city-owned fiber. What's the benefit of that? Saving us a lot of money in the long term?
Well, in this case, we're actually
in the first
we're actually
paragraph,
not replacing fiber in this. Well, a small piece. This is actually new fiber, but in general, in our planning process, we are replacing Comcast aerial fiber, and that is strategically what we're doing. And that's what you'll see probably next month as I bring you probably several more fiber construction. So the Comcast fiber was put up on poles about 22 years ago. It is throughout the county and it creates what's called the iNet. And most municipalities in the county government operate their backbone on that fiber. So that fiber is owned by Comcast. We are allowed to use it right now. What we want to do is we want to go put fiber in the ground where it is better protected. It becomes private. It is our fiber at that point, and we can control the network and the security of it. The other thing that comes into play and was a driving force behind this is, as of September 28th, the FCC has given Comcast and Verizon and the broadband utilities the ability to come to us and charge us back what is called in-kind provisions. So it is likely in the near future Comcast will come to us and they will want to charge us full commercial rates for these lines, to lease them.
Makes sense.
So we're being proactive here to try and replace them. The other part about your question on the partnership and the mutual benefit and should the county pay half of this, the reality is the county has, by coming down 198 and then across the state highway, which we have a problem with because we're not a utility. So that helped us right there because we're going to have to do battle with the state highway administration because we're not a utility and you have to be a utility to cross the state road. So the county can do that the way they're configured. So they got that taken care of for us. So the benefits are we're going to get all the stuff down Van Dusen. The fiber is going to sit outside the fire station for extension down to the new hospital complex. For extension down to the senior center that they might want to hook into, and some traffic lights there. The big thing that the county needs is they're going to get redundancy by coming into our building. We're going to give them one of our pairs of fiber that goes to Hyattsville and connects to the iNet. So the county is going to be able to put this radio tower at Schweitzer which is a major northern radio tower for them. If that goes down, the north side radios will go down, both police and fire. So by coming through our building, they have a redundancy. At the same time, we have radios, a Radio Shack up there, and we have radios up there. So we are also going to be able to get the benefit of connecting to our radios up there, and we will use their communication shack to put our police radios on a redundant system up at theirs. So we have some good public safety redundancy. In the future, we will be looking at an MOU to access this fiber. In this case here, the county had a grant that needed to be spent, and it takes 6 months to a year to get an MOU through the county. But I do expect there will be an MOU to go through this. Funding is in the CIP. I have funding in the current CIP. And as far as the future, I don't want to specifically go into it tonight, but I'm working on some stuff in the next couple of weeks. You will have more fiber next month. But we have probably 4 or 5 projects. Almost engineering is done, ready to go.
Director Frost, you explained it very well. It makes sense to me now because at first I was reading it, I was kind of understanding, but the way you explain it, I understand it totally. The only last question I have for you, sir, is like the maintenance though. So when you got to do maintenance on these things, this third party would come in, this SaiTech company out of Lago, Maryland, would they come in and do the maintenance? How would that process work?
Probably not. We have a company in Jessup we use on our current fiber in the ground.
Okay.
They're also on state contract. So the fiber in the ground, pretty much you don't touch it unless it gets dug up.
Okay.
Which happens occasionally, but it is better protected than the fiber that's aerial.
Okay. So once it's laid.
So what we do is we monitor the connection at each end. So between here and the Army, we have fiber. We monitor that connection every 2 or 3 minutes. We ping it. If it comes back and says, I'm here, we know we're good. If we don't get the heartbeat back, then we know we have a problem. And then we will either look for it ourselves, find a problem, and then if it needs to be spliced, if it got dug up, we would go to Fiber Plus and Jessup. But generally, it's maintenance free.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
I'm fine with it.
Councilman Les?
I'm fine with this.
I just have a quick question, Mr. Frost. In your presentation and in your text recommendation, you mentioned the old Wilson Park, the dog park, but the park you mentioned on the other side of the street, tennis courts, they're not going to have any connectivity. There won't be any connectivity on that side?
We're putting a drop there, so we can extend it into it and put it up. I think the thought was that the use of that park at this point maybe didn't warrant it. When we have more money, we would run it in there, but it's literally 100 feet.
So it doesn't make good economic sense to just do that now versus coming back at a later date and doing it?
I'll look at it.
Okay, that's all I ask.
I hear your point.
That's all I ask.
They do anything for a price.
Valid comment, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. We're all good, council, I presume? Okay, great. 1F is ordinance number 1948, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of Laurel, Maryland, to amend the City of Laurel Unified Land Development Code by removing ordinance number 1933 from Chapter 20, Land Development and Subdivision, Article 6A, Telecommunications Facilities in Public Rights-of-Ways, and to amend the Laurel City Code by placing said ordinance in the Laurel City Code, Chapter 13, Telecommunications, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance 1948 is the follow-on to 1947. As I said, we're going to move Ordinance 1933 out of the Land Development Code, put it in the new Chapter 13, Telecommunications, and we'll codify it within that chapter.
I think that's pretty straightforward. Any comments or questions, starting with Councilman DeWalt?
No questions.
Councilman Sidnor?
No questions.
Councilwoman Nicholas?
No question.
Councilman Les?
I'm fine with this, Mr. President.
So am I. Thank you, Mr. Frost. Agenda item 1, where are we? 1G. Ordinance number 1949, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of Laurel, Maryland, to amend Chapter 2, Administration, Article 3, Officers and Employees, Section 2-41C, Retirement Board of Trustees, Membership, Term, Removal of the City of Laurel, Maryland, Code to allow for the selection of a vice chair for the Retirement Board of Trustees and providing an effective date.
Yeah, got it.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The ordinance before you is pretty self-explanatory. What we found out is that when we established the Board of Trustees years ago, there was nothing in there for a vice chair. So at the meeting, the chair asked that we take a look at this. We told him we would do legislation. It would probably be September, sometime before we got to their request. But this pretty much basically says that the board shall annually select among its members a vice chair. The selection shall take place at the first regular meeting in or after January of each calendar year. The vice chair shall serve at the duties of the chair in the absence of the chair. And that's really it, except some renumbering of the ordinance. And it's really just to clean it up and allow them to have a vice chair. I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Questions for the mayor? I'll start down on this end with Councilman Les.
I'm fine with this.
Councilwoman Nicholas,
I'm fine.
Councilman Sidnor,
No questions.
and Councilman DeWalt.
No questions.
Thank you, Mayor. 1H, Resolution number 8-19, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of Laurel, Maryland, for the purpose of opposing an increase in the truck weight size.
Thank you, Mr. President. You may have seen I did send a letter at the request of the organization. I just left my notes in the office of the individual I've been dealing with. But for those that may not know, there was a push at the federal level to try to expand the size of trucks, whether they had dual trucks or not, and which causes more weight, causes problems here in this city or any city that's trying to take care of their roads. I also think personally that it's a hazard to be out on the road, and wanted to bring this to the council, see if they were interested in doing a resolution. Senator Cardin has responded back. I think we shared that with you. We appreciate they were opposing that as well, but there is a big push. Actually, I think it's Amazon and a few others that are really trying to push this. So that's where we're at. So it's pretty self-explanatory. If you read it, it's their resolution wording, and we changed maybe just a few things, and that was it on it. So I didn't know if council wanted to take a position on it formally. So
Council would be interested in hearing from you. We'll start with Councilwoman Nicholas.
No question.
Councilman.
Yeah, let me just
Councilman Les? Sorry.
mention as the mayor suggested, this was Amazon may be behind this, partially behind this. But one of the advantages that we have on the council is we have members of the council serving on various committees for National League of Cities. This issue has been discussed by the Transportation Infrastructure and Services, but this is not the end. This is just the start, the push. The push is for triples and autonomous trucks that run from the East Coast to the West Coast. Because the constraint they have right now is the 10 hours that the drivers can drive, then they got to stop. And of course, Amazon doesn't want that truck to stop, or whoever doesn't want the truck to stop. So this is just, understand, this is just the start of a push. And I'm totally in favor of this resolution. I think we're asking for problems that we don't even understand. And I'll come back to what I just said. The autonomous vehicles will not be cars. They will be these long-haul trucks running from coast to coast. Be on the highway, and there won't be doubles. They'll be, with an extra 10 feet, they'll be triples. Okay, so again, I'm in favor of this resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Les. Councilman Sidnor.
Yes, I support the mayor resolution, and like Councilman last said, I talked to a couple of truck drivers, friends of mine, and they totally against big trucks coming on the road because it's going to take them out of business. Because once again, with Amazon and big corporations, they want to use more trucks, bigger trucks. But like you said, automated technology come in, they want to use no drivers as well. So I definitely support this, well, the infrastructure of the city as well. So just to move forward with this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Sidnor. Councilman DeWalt.
What's the maximum weight allowed in the city for a truck? Does anybody know?
Pull out the code book.
We don't know.
Anybody know?
City.
All right.
80,000 is the.
Is it 80?
Certain roads,
That's
I
federal.
think certain roads, it's 80,000.
Rob, is that all roads in the city?
All but the ones that have been marked for this truck weight, yes.
We
If
got an issue over on 4th Street. You got
I don't think they can park on city streets. That was the problem we had over on, what was it, Cypress and Mulberry?
well, they got to be marked.
That's okay. No other questions.
I did a little research on this topic this afternoon, and I agree with my colleagues. 97,000 pounds is what they're looking to move from, 17,000 pounds more than the 80,000 that's federally allowed now. And as in my reading, I found that not only Amazon, but Kraft Corporation, Home Depot,
That's
a
it, Home
number of
Depot.
them are really pushing to move this forward. There are a number of, in my opinion, negative things that come out of this, but one of the economic things is that the truck drivers, would be hauling additional commerce, additional loads. The corporations benefit, but the truck drivers don't. That's been part of the discussion that's taking place now. The rates don't increase for what the truck drivers are hauling. They're hauling more, but they're not going to get paid for the additional weight that they're carrying, and not to overlook the safety issue from a motorist side. Some of the statements I read from truck drivers who have very negative things to say about us four-wheel car drivers, that we're the ones who cause cut off trucks, et cetera, et cetera. You can imagine what that could look like with a 97,000 pound truck load that has to make a sudden stop, how difficult those kinds of things would be. And as Councilman Sidnor mentioned, also the infrastructure, what it does to our roads and bridges. Could you imagine a backup on an interstate where there's a bridge and you've got several of these 97,000 pound trucks on a bridge? I'd hate to think of what that could
95 was just closed again, 2 weeks ago, and it was all coming through town.
Yeah. So I'm in favor. Mr. Faree?
Well, as you all well know, 95, the bridge right there is already weight restricted, where they send the vehicles already through town. And they use 7th Street as a cut through. Seeing tanks come down 7th Street, that's a lot of weight. From what I understand, those things are almost 120,000 pounds.
I agree. So, thank Mayor. We're all in support of this resolution.
I didn't know the chief.
Well, let's put the chief on the spot. Chief, any comments?
Not at this time, sir. I would concur with safety of the roadways, especially ability to stopping distance.
Great.
Cause us our roads. We're across roads. Counties and other.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. That concludes our agenda. Is there anything to be brought before this work session? Seeing nothing, our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.